Hi guys, my name's Len and I run a sports handicapping service under KS Capping, and I'm here to talk to you about why you should be taking the San Francisco 49ers +4 against the New Orleans Saints. There's more than a few reasons as why we should do this. But first off, I want to preface, this is the first time I've ever done a YouTube video. It's going to be less than 100% professional, but I will improve. But in the meantime, I just kind of want to get this information out to you, and I'll get better from here. But anyhow, let me go on with it. I'll do this in 4 different parts. First off, my contention is that the New Orleans Saints are probably one of the best teams that we've ever seen in history playing at home. And my contention also is that the New Orleans Saints is a very mediocre, if not a below mediocre team when you get them away from the Superdome, and definitely a below mediocre team when you get them on natural grass in open air. And I'll give you the substantiating facts why. First off, for the season, at home, the Saints have scored an average of 41.6 points per game. That is incredible. That's ludicrous. That's beyond fantastic. Now, they only average 27.25 points per game on the road. Get them out of the Superdome and they score 14.35 less points per game. Now, if you get them away from the Superdome in open-air stadiums on natural grass, they only average 25.8 points per game, which is 15.8 less than they average at home. Now, at home, their average scoring margin is plus 22.6, meaning at home, they average beating their opponents by an average of 22.6 points. That is amazing. Now, you get them away from the Superdome, and they only average beating their opponents by 2.75 points. And this is the majority of their opponents are below mediocre or below 50% teams. Now, in open-air stadiums away from the Superdome, they only average beating their opponents by 1.4 points. Now, 5 teams, and out of the 5 teams that they played in open-air stadiums, only 2 of those teams have winning records, Tennessee and Green Bay. Understandable that an elite team loses to Green Bay, but not Tennessee, and definitely not the rest of their competition. In open-air stadiums, the Saints are 3-2 with a combined score of 129 Saints to 122 their opponents. The average, that would be an average score of 25.8 to 24.4, just barely eking out victories. The Saints have played only one playoff team away in open air. That's the Green Bay Packers. Of course, they lost that game. I'll be right back for part 2. Hi guys. This is part 2 of 3 as to why you should be taking the San Francisco 49ers over the New Orleans Saints. Now, we've already established that the New Orleans Saints are one of the best teams in history at home. In the Superdome, they're one of the best ever, especially offensively. Away from the Superdome, not nearly as good. Away from the Superdome, on natural grass and open air, substantially worse than that. Now, if you take their last 10 games that the Saints have played, only one of those games was in open air on natural grass. Now, don't count that one game, only count the other 9. They scored an average of 36.7, which is fantastic. Now, that one game that was away outdoors on natural grass, that was against Tennessee. They just eked out a victory at 22-17. The next segment of this is versus quality teams away from the Superdome. The Saints on the road versus quality teams, and I have that broken down as top 10 overall defenses, top 10 pass defenses, or top 10 pass offenses. The teams that meet that criteria away from the Superdome against the Saints: Green Bay, and the Saints lost 34-42. Jacksonville, the league's worst, bar none, offensive producing team, the Saints won 23-10. Then they have the St. Louis Rams, which they played and lost by 2 scores, 21-31. Against the Atlanta Falcons, they won by a field goal, 26-23. In those 4 games against quality opponents away from the Superdome, they are 2-2 with a negative combined score of 104 to 106. Now, the next segment that I think is very important to this game and crucial is going to be turnover margin. The Saints, like every other team, has played 8 away games. Now, in those 8 away games, 4 times they failed to win the turnover margin. In those 4 games that they lost the turnover margin, was Green Bay, they were -1 turnover margin, they lost. Against Jacksonville, -1 turnover margin, they won. Against Tampa Bay, -4 turnover margin, they lost. Against St. Louis, they were -1 in the turnover margin, they lost. So in the 4 games that they lost a turnover margin, they lost 3 of those games and only won 1. Now, of those 4 games, they had a combined score of 98 to 109. So they scored 11 less points than what their opponents did against very, very mediocre, in fact, below mediocre competition. Now, to take this a step further, the 49ers are not just number 1 in the NFL at plus 28 in turnover margin, but the 49ers have only failed out of all their games, all 16 games in the regular season, they have only failed to win the turnover margin by +1 or better twice, once against Baltimore, once against Detroit, and I see them winning the turnover margin tomorrow. Now, the last playoff victory for the New Orleans Saints in their history never happened. They never won one road playoff game, and I'm not so sure they're even going to get one by 3 points tomorrow. Breeze away from the Superdome. Now we look at Breeze compared to Alex Smith. No comparison, right? Wrong. You take Breeze away from the Superdome and count Alex Smith only in Candlestick Park. Their passer rating, Alex Smith actually has a better passer rating than Drew Brees. If you don't count the Minnesota game where the Saints went to Minnesota and the Saints went against a secondary that was running 3rd and 4th string secondary players, they even got players that weren't even playing in the NFL to that point of the season to run their secondary, to run back in their secondary. Not counting that game, Drew Brees has an average passer rating of 93.27. If you only count the passer rating, the average passer rating for Alex Smith at Candlestick Park, he has 101 passer rating. So you're looking at 8 points above what Brees is. He's a better quarterback at home than Brees is away. Other than that, let's go on to part 3. Hi guys, part 3 and the last part of why you should be taking the San Francisco 49ers plus 4 points against the New Orleans Saints. Now, San Francisco is the number 8th best run team in the regular season this year. Now, the Saints have a very good run defense. What you'll notice, if you look back at it, the Saints have been very mediocre running the ball against top 10 run defenses. For example, against Dallas, they averaged only 3.1 per carry. Against Cincinnati, they averaged only 1.7. Against Baltimore, they averaged only 3.5. Against Pittsburgh, only 3.3. New Orleans is the 6th ranked run defense. That's going to necessitate San Francisco establishing a pass game early. But the pass game that I see happening is not going to be our traditional pass game the way we think of Green Bay or New Orleans. This is going to be more of an Alex Smith, Harbaugh type passing game. Real short passes over the middle, 5 and 7 yards, or passes out onto the flat to really slow down that loaded box and those blitzes of New Orleans. Because New Orleans likes to send everything at you. And if you try to drop back on a 5 or 7 step drop, they're usually going to get some sacks on you and maybe even some turnovers, or make you force you into a mistake. The worst thing for a blitzing team like that is just that. Teams that will run draws like Frank Gore straight up the middle, or small screens off to the side, or passes into the flat, or short passes over the middle. That will slow down that blitz amount of New Orleans, and it will also put their defense back on their heels a little bit. So it's important that San Francisco establishes that early. You'll notice if you look back at any of the play-by-plays of San Francisco this year, they pass a vast majority of first down, and then they run second and third. But I think what we're going to see tomorrow is that they are going to be passing a little bit more on second and third, and especially third downs, because that's when New Orleans likes to blitz. They like to send the whole kitchen sink at them on third down, on third and passing downs. Now, if you look at Sean Payton, what he's going to have to do, he's going to be going against the league's #1 run defense. Although New Orleans has a much better run defense than what they had last year and years past, they're not going to be very effective against this San Francisco run defense. They're going to have to pass, and that's kind of ironic to say it because the Saints pass for such a high percentage anyway. But they're going to have to pass even more. They're probably going to try shorter passes. All this is going to do is stretch the game out more. They're not going to be going for those long passes nearly as much. They still will. I mean, for God's sake, it's Drew Brees. They're going to. But other than that, that's one of the reasons why I like a lower scoring game than what most people are really anticipating. Intangibles. New Orleans has won 9 straight games against the spread without losing or pushing. Now, if they win tomorrow against the spread, they will be only the 3rd team in 25 years to do that. Over 420 teams have played in the NFL in the last 25 years, and this will be the 3rd team to do it. Now, the reason why I'm not even worried about losing this game tomorrow, even if, turnovers happen, what have you, things happen. It's, you have the human element. But the reason being, because what I'll do next week is press it, increase my bet by 3 times, and then I'll do it again on the last game, because I don't like the chances of the Saints doing what no other team has done in at least 25 years. I only check back to 25 years. No need to go further, but it may have never happened where a team has gone. What you'd be looking at tomorrow would be 9, and then 10 would be the NFC Championship game. Then the Super Bowl would be 11. No team has won 11 and won and kept that streak intact for the season. The New England Patriots did it with 14 straight wins, but they lost in the Super Bowl against the Giants. No team has won 11 straight with an unbroken streak to end a season. It's never happened. And I don't see it happening now. In fact, I don't see it happening any further than where it is right now. Now, other than that, the Saints, their total road wins in the playoffs, 0. They've not won 1 road playoff game in the history of their franchise, and I don't see them doing it tomorrow. I have this game booked out as Saints 23, San Francisco 20. And it could very well be the San Francisco 23, Saints 20, but I do see a 23-20 game total of 43 points. Definitely take San Francisco +4, take New Orleans and San Francisco under the total of 47.5. Other than that, like I said, guys, I'll get better on the YouTube videos, but hopefully this helps you. Take care.